I like to say, because like a lot of people be like, oh, I'd never cheat, right? And like, I'm your host, Paul McCarran, and the whole thing with the process, it's the process of me gaining knowledge and gaining wisdom. My guests are going to provide the knowledge and the wisdom, and I'm doing work at the same time to gain knowledge and wisdom. Process of 2 to 3 years down the line, now I'm providing knowledge and wisdom along with the guests. Welcome to Process Podcast. I think that's a very so JP, I've started to listen to a lot of his podcasts, but basically he was in this podcast and he was with this 2 other hosts, and it was something to the extent of well, you'd never cheat. And he was like, well, that's pretty ignorant, or that's pretty strong of me to say. I was like, I'm not I'm susceptible. I could, right? I could, if the right person at the right place with the right clothes with the right tequila shot and all these variables lined up. He's like, who's to say I'm not one? But he's like, it comes to accountability and having the people around you and putting yourself in the situations, because for me to say I would never ever do that makes it more likely that it could happen, not being aware that it could happen and surrounding yourself with the people that can prevent it. So I think, like you said, it's but it's controlling those small things that, oh, it's just a double take, even though I'm in a relationship. It's that double take leads to, oh, it's just a DM. Oh, it's just another DM. Oh, this could be a coaching client. And it's man, next thing you know, you're full on so it's just being very cognizant and intentional with every action.
Yep, exactly.
And so that's even so reading this Covenant with Your Eyes, one of my I'm in a group with this guy named Josh. I might have him on at some point. He's just becoming a good buddy, and he's it's a discipleship group where he's going, and he recommended this book, but he was talking about having conviction at the gym for taking your shirt off, or how he was feeling that. And I've never felt it before. And I kind of it was 2 days ago. So I was at the gym lifting, I had my shirt off, never felt conviction about it before. But there was this girl standing in front of me, and not that she was looking at me, probably not. I mean, girls don't really care that much. But I was also the fact that other girls can see me as I'm growing closer to Jesus, I'm growing closer in my relationship, just as sex is planned for marriage. God's designing for marriage. I was man, I don't really want other girls looking at me not that they are, but lustfully, or in that sense, I want to save that for my future spouse. And so everyone has different convictions of their own, but it's small, intentional things of what, as you grow closer to the Lord, of those things you start to notice. And I was man, maybe I don't want to have my shirt off. As much as I am proud of the body I've built, maybe this isn't the place. Mm-hmm. And it's everyone feels those different things, because for me, for the years, I didn't feel that. Even after talking to Josh a little bit, didn't feel that. But then there was a moment where I was man, I don't want my spouse to be seen in that way at the mm-hmm. gym. I don't really want she probably wouldn't want other girls to see me that way right now, even though I don't know who that is. But it's everything I'm doing, because this thing about relationship and how beautiful yours is, that's something I want down the line. And it's now I'm preparing for God to give me one of his daughters, not when that daughter comes.
By just being aware of that, you're going to attract the person that is not looking for someone with the shirt off.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what you're talking about. You don't want necessarily somebody that's
yeah, why would the girl I'm dating be oh, I want that.
Yeah, I saw you with your shirt off, so I came over here. That's not the girl that you want to attract.
No,
and I think
sure.
And I think that plays a huge role in a lot of the divorce rate and things like that, is because men will attract the wrong females because they put the wrong version of themselves out to the world. So it's the same exact point is the girl that comes up to you and says, Palmer, you look good, what's your number,
yeah.
Or something like that, right? Let's just say something happens right there and it feels good, whatever.
But she's looking for a guy with his shirt off at the gym. What's that have to say?
So if you're confused down the line, where you're being a little bit more vulnerable and she's not really digging it, she showed you up front, where she was interested in, you know what I'm saying? And and that's where I think a lot of men get into the wrong relationships because they're putting the wrong, stuff out to the world. They're flashing, let's say the cars, they're flashing, the business, the money, and
the girls that like that, they like that.
Cool. Yeah. I want to be taken care of. Cool. I want to go on the jet and I want to go on the yachts and stuff like that. Cool. But when it comes to looking for a wife, that's not what she cares about. When you're looking for somebody to entertain, sure, maybe that's one thing, but if you're looking for a wife, your wife isn't going to be looking for what money you're making and how flashy you are. Like, she's going to want to know your character. She's going to want to know like how you handle conversations. She's going to want to see how you treat other people. She's going to want to know, like, who is this person, to their core? How do they talk to their mom? Like, those are the things that, like, you are really valuable when your females are looking for a partner, is like the character. And a lot of men don't show their character. They just show their assets. They show their, like, their things on the outside, which again will attract people, very beautiful people, right? Very good looking people, right? And that makes them feel good, but it's not the wife material. I would say a majority of the time, and then they might even marry him. Majority of the time, it's not the wife material, and then it's a great first 6 months, and it's a great first year.
But
right.
Your kids are growing up with like a divorced family or whatever, because, and my mentor likes to say, he's like, just as like you don't want to go to the grocery store on an empty stomach because you're going to buy the wrong things. It's like, that's the same thing with dating. If you're going like, so that's like when I was back at Alabama, it was like I was going out looking for these relationships per se, or these short-term relationships. I was hungry, or like in a sense, like I wasn't full. I wasn't full of myself. Like I was going to shop to be fulfilled by physical things, by maybe chemistry in a sense, but chemistry was just toxicity at the end of the day.
Right.
And it's like, so now, because now I'm filled up, like now when you fill your cup or like you're full going to the grocery store, you're going to pick those healthier options, and you're going to actually not fall to like the junk food in the aisle. And I'm not calling like women junk food, but there are some women that if you're shopping lustful, or like if you're going to look for a woman lustfully, her attractiveness is going to sway you, and you're not going to see the 5 red flags that, oh, she's hammered at like this bar, and that, oh, she just talked to 3 other guys before I talked to her, and like all these small things that as you become more full and like confident in yourself and knowing what you're looking for, then you're going to be able to like find the right woman.
Right. And I think it's just always important to have your character, be shown. You don't need to be the perfect version of yourself. And I think that's something that, I want everyone to understand, that when you're building a relationship, where you're getting into one, and, you're exploring this opportunity, right, with somebody, they don't need to have it all, right? They don't need to have the perfect character. They don't need to have, the perfect, idea of life, or be on the same wave as you. The main thing that you need to start out with a relationship is, number one, do we have fun together? Like, can I be around this person for extended amount of time and have fun? Like, I think that's the basic, like,
do I want to see this person again?
Yeah, that's the basic things of a person, like on a real level though, not like, hey, we're going to parties, we're going on like that.
We're getting drunk.
Of course, everybody's gonna have fun there. Like that's not a good tell. I'm talking about.
Can we go play putt and have like the most
not
fun
even
time?
That. Can we sit in this room together and just literally? Yeah. I'm serious. Like,
and be in silence and enjoy each other's presence.
Yeah, exactly. Can we talk for a while? Like how's the conversation? Like, are we able to, like poke fun at each other? Like that. I think that type of like kiddish play is still something that like we always yearn for, is like, I want to be able to horse play with you, or like wrestle with you, and like have fun and like keep it light, right? I think that's the basis of a friendship, right? Is to be able to do that. And then so that's the number one thing. The person doesn't need to be like super like far along in their journey. Like here's the thing, is like when I got in my relationship with Shannon, like I was nowhere near this guy. I was nowhere near this guy.
Yeah.
But you, like you said earlier, you said, how do you know a woman's, for you? The one thing that I would say that I knew Shannon was the person for me was when I wanted to change everything about myself that I didn't like, that I knew that wasn't going to be the man that she wanted in her life, and I wanted to change those things. And that was, it's still a process. It's still like,
the rest of your life it will
it's still reprogramming, because guess what? Things come up and you're like, what? I do that. I do that. And it's like, I appreciate you, saying that, because I don't like when I do that either. I don't think that's a good thing for me to do. I don't want our kids to see me do that, or whatever it is, right? Like I don't want to.
Yeah.
So, being able to have fun and enjoy each other, and just in just a normal space. Like you don't need to be stimulated.
Yeah.
You guys are just chatting like this. Can we hang out for hours? Stay the night, whatever it is. And I'm excited that you're there in the morning. Like we can keep doing these things, right? And then developing that friendship, you know, over time, and being able to have grace for somebody that, you know, probably didn't have all of the resources that you did, right? You just just understanding like where they came from, you know, understanding their background, understanding, you know, what they might be good at, but what they probably need help with. Like for me, example, like Shannon knew that I don't have a dad, right, in my life, so I probably have a lot of missing
small subconscious things that are going to come up that you don't realize, and she can maybe see, or you see and don't realize what they're from.
Exactly. So it's stuff like that. Like, am I a bad person? No, but do I have a lot of things that I never got to learn properly? Yes. And does it suck that we have to learn this probably in this relationship? Sure. But but like, I need to learn the hard way, you know, and that's essentially
addressing the conflict head on when it comes up, because
that's the only way
Cliff
that you
Knettle,
know.
I think is his name.
I don't.
He's like it's in a podcast with him and George Janko, which you probably know George.
Yeah.
But Cliff talks about there's like 4 types of like ways of like avoiding fights, or like 4 types that you should dive into it. But like one of them's like running away from it. Like that's not healthy. Like there's things that you should do when conflict arises, and one of them's like address them right away. There's like 4 things that you should do when a conflict arises, and that's how you grow. It's not avoiding it. It's not pushing it till later. It's not staying mad overnight. It's like all these. But it's because conflict actually sparks growth and trust unless you handle it the wrong way.
Right. And that's where we had made a commitment to each other of like, when things come up, like I promise I'm going to talk to you about them. Because like I said, I'm short wired. It felt like I was kind of just like, you know, I had half of the development that I needed. Like, it's really important. Even if you have, you know, a father that you're like, you know what, I don't really want to be like you, but like just having that presence is important. It's really important energetically. You know, it's important. And so knowing that was missing in my life, there was an opportunity for me to be vulnerable about like, hey, you know, can you give me some grace on these things? Because I don't know how to properly communicate with you. I've never witnessed a relationship where people communicated to each other effectively. You know, I was raised that people yell at each other, and you know, when there's a situation, like you just yell to be right versus like actually having this. And I know that's not what I want to do, but I still don't know how to do it. So forgive me if I come off wrong, but like, I'm just trying to learn this.
Yeah.
And that's the reality, man. Like, and like that, it couldn't be more true. You know, like that's my truth is I don't know how to do these things, but I really want to, because I really care about you and I want to learn and I want to be with you for a long time. And I know that conflict is going to come up and for the rest of our, you know, our being, especially because we're different, you know, and then if it's, you know, not this thing, it's the next, because, you know, as you guys grow through life, you guys are going to be tackling new things together.
So something's always new going to come up. And I think it's that communication that's so important to say, hey, like, because if the partner or the right person that, or like the person you're committing to, and like vice versa, if you say to them like, hey, I need some grace on this thing, like I can guarantee you they're going to be willing to give you grace, especially when you like mention it to them. And like the hardest thing I think for probably you, me, is like giving ourselves grace.
Yep.
But if you communicate to your partner like, hey, I need grace, I'm working on this, like it's hard for me to give myself grace, but I'm going to share with you, they're going to give you way more grace than you are. And obviously, like God gives us grace. God gives us so much grace. And so the hardest thing I think is you giving yourself grace. But if you can communicate to your partner, I think communication is huge.
Mm-hmm. It's one of the biggest things.
It's like, you know, so if I was to talk to a girl, like if I was to communicate, hey, when I'm at work from 4 to 12, 4 to 2, whatever I'm working, like I will not be like, I'm at work, like I'm working hard. So if you don't hear from me for those hours, and this might seem silly for people to say, but like small things like that, like, hey, when I'm at work for these 10 hours, I won't get in touch. Right when I get off of work, I'll text you when I get home. Something like that. As simple as it might sound, that communication gets away all elimination of doubt. Like, hey, what's Palmer doing? And so vice versa. It's like some of those small communication steps, and I haven't really implemented them yet. And whenever I get into that, it's gonna test me. But it's also like those small things of communication that might just seem like, oh, of course you're at work. You're like, right. But some people might think, like, everyone's grown up with different things. And then the other thing I want to say on that side is, you like the things that complement each other, because a lot of people are looking for someone to complete them, and that's like, I think that's a really false way to look at like a relationship. It's like complement. So like the things that make you and the things that make Shannon like complement each other. Because like let's say you can cook food really well and it's like a simple thing, but like you can cook food really well and she can't, and then now you can complement and you can make her food, or like the things that you're not good at, like she can help you out with. And so a lot of people want the person to be so similar, but it's like, how do you channel the differences and complement one another?
Yeah, it's important because it's true, opposites do attract, and a lot of people are looking for people that are similar to them. To some degree, it's important to have, common interests, common, ideas of life and things of that nature, which Shannon and I have always agreed on. We want our lives to look a little bit different than what we were raised on. We wanted, it was really important for us to take the examples of relationships in our life and work to improve it, to essentially, I talk about this on my page all the time, to break the family bloodline, to redirect your generational bloodline. And that takes an insane amount of courage, it takes an insane amount of practice and patience. And her and I both, we don't come from, I don't come from somewhere where I'm like super proud of, she has a good family and her parents are still together. But she still wants something different for her family. Right. And we both came, together and we had an agreement on that. We were like, we are going to rewrite this script. We're going to do something different. We're going to do something new. And that was like our commitment from day one. And it was like how we're going to get there. Well, my expectation, and it was proven over time, was when there's a problem, we talk about it. That's the expectation. If I'm feeling something, I'm going to tell you, vice versa. And and I think one of the things too, like as a man, that, you got to be prepared for, and you got to learn how to have patience with is the response. Cause you're a man, you're expecting, her to respond a specific way. She said, you tell her, hey, I'm going to be busy for work for the next 10 hours, you would expect, her to say like, okay, cool. Like, have a good day at work. Right.
But it might be a hold up, like 10 hours. Like you can't send me a one text. And it's like, okay, maybe that's the things you got to figure out.
You have to be prepared to be challenged in those ways, because it's not going to go all the time like that. Right. She's got a time of the month, and she's got, she's got hormonal things that you don't experience. Yeah. Right. She has emotions that you don't experience to that level. Right. And the men are built to be more logical, and women are built to be more emotional. And so understanding the dynamics of that relationship of just the basics of a human will help you come to, better and more efficient agreements. It's not necessarily like, oh, she doesn't, care that I'm at work. Like, no, she's actually wired to be more emotional, like in her DNA, like her biology is to be more emotional and to be a caregiver and to, express more emotion. And yours is to be more logical, and you're supposed to be, the provider and the foundation of a household and in a relationship, right? You guys are made differently for a reason. Yeah. And when people try to be be in each other's roles and try to flip flop, things get confusing.
It's not going to work. And
so you don't want her. You don't want her to be that.
These days and age is like females trying to be these independent women, almost like the self-made man, which is, I almost think, a fallacy, as I talked about with Arnold's book. But it's like they're trying to be these standoff, like self-independent women, like taking these male roles. And there's nothing wrong with like being a successful female business owner or whatever, but there's specific roles that the male and the female play in like a relationship. And in the Bible, it talks a lot about like biblical marriage and roles, and there's like specific ones, and God's created relationships in a certain way that, like, just as Jesus died for the church, the man should be willing to die for the woman in the marriage, and same, like the woman submits to the man just as the church submits to Jesus. And it's like, so we play different roles.
Yep.
And when I think, especially in America with these like self-independent women, I think it's amazing, like women doing their own business ventures and this and that, but it is we got to be careful when those roles start to flip, because that's not going to work out the right way, usually, at least.
Yeah. And you know what, like we talked about earlier, everything scales and grows in according to the decisions and what's going on. And what I mean by that is women are taking care of themselves for a reason. And there's a lack of masculine men in the society. So it's not because women are just like, you know what, I want to just run a business and take care of my family. Like, no, they're doing that because
they don't find these men.
because these other men are not providing what they need or what they're looking for. They don't make them feel safe. They don't make them feel seen, secure. So they're going out there and doing it themselves, right? And it's a huge problem in society in our like dating world, is that people are, you know, they're not understanding what's happening. They're not really aware why, you know, I want to take care of myself. They're just doing it, right? It's bad relationship, unhealthy relationship. I'm done with men. I'm just going to focus on myself. I'm going to take care of myself. Right.
Yeah.
And those bad relationships come from, you know, again, poor communication, not understanding, you know, providing space.
Or the woman looking for the wrong things, it's just as the men were, you know.
Exactly.
They're attracted to the person with the shirt off.
Women also, exactly, same exact concept. It doesn't just happen because, right? Women weren't, you know, running their own business 15, 20 years ago like they are now. You know what I mean? It was very, very few and very select, right? They wanted to be in their feminine role. Women wanted to be, you know, taking care of the kids and in the house and like being in, you know, not saying like that's what they have to do. Obviously the evolution is very beautiful, but wanting to only take care of themselves and not really wanting
Kids
a male
or anything else.
a male in their life, you know, not wanting kids. To me, that is a byproduct of very unhealthy relationships previously that made you think that, because when you were born, you didn't have inside of you that I don't want a man. You were born with your structure was a man is going to be the other side of my completion. Not like completing me as like a person, but completing.
Well, it's becoming one in the word, how it talks about man becoming one with woman.
Exactly.
And how like the woman was made out of the man's rib.
And then when women get seen as that too, and I just want to stay on that for a second, because when women get seen as that becomes their validation, because they don't get it from a man anymore. They don't feel the love and the respect and, you know, the enjoyment from being in a relationship. They're getting that from their business now. So now that becomes a revolving, you know, hit of dopamine, instead of it being something that comes from being in a relationship and sharing love and, you know, growing with somebody. You're growing with your business now. That's your relationship.
Yeah. So I just heard that's like exactly what I was literally listening to JP. It was about 6 things you should look for, and or like how women, whatever it was like, but it was men want to be respected, women want to be cherished. And so that's like the biggest thing is, if a man isn't cherishing a woman, now they start to like almost get cherished by their business or their money or those kind of things. Sure. But it's like we are created. So he kind of derives this from Proverbs 31, which it's like kind of gives a lot of the great qualities that a biblical woman should possess, or like that a good woman, like a man will feel no lack of gain, like all these different things. But it talks about like a man wants to be respected, a woman wants to be cherished. And if they're lacking that from past relationships, maybe it is they're pursuing the wrong guy. But if they're lacking that time and time again, there does become a certain point where they're like, oh, well, I'm going to be a self-made woman. I don't want kids. And it's a dangerous.
Men have let me down. You know, I've been disappointed. I've been hurt. You know, they're just to the point they're just protecting themselves, right? And you know, I'm not sure how much longer you want to talk about relationships. We could talk all day on it, but you know, everything happens for a reason. And if you're not willing to look at the reason, you're not really, you know, interested in diving deep into why you are the way that you are, you're going to struggle to understand people. You're going to struggle to have committed relationships, and you're going to struggle, you know, with the normal things that make a relationship strong. If you're not able to sit in your why you are the way that you are and work on it
and be vulnerable.
It's gonna. You're gonna struggle. You're gonna struggle to have those really deep connections if you're not able to say, you know what, this is why I am the way that I am. This is where I come from. You know, I want to work on this.
Yeah. All right. So let's pivot. I had to use it. Let's pivot to pivot. Yeah. So I know I introed it a little bit, giving a little plug, but let's talk about this new drop. So I know we've talked about it. We had partners, we have different vision. I don't know how much you want to share about that, but what is pivoting to? Because it's been around for what,
2 years.
2 years. And when I met you, it kind of seemed a little stagnant. It seems like it's got more life than ever now, from what I can tell. The vision's clear. It's aligned. Speak on this new drop. I think it says no growth in comfort is one of your sayings. Believe and conquer. But what inspired this drop? What inspired this revival, in a sense, of the brand? And then speak on, like, sorry, I'll leave you with that to start. I'm trying not to get too.
No, you're good.
I get excited. I'll lead to too much.
Yeah. So just to backtrack a little bit, we haven't done a launch and give the audience a little bit more clarity on it. We haven't done a drop since last June, so about 8 months.
Right when I met you. Yeah. Pretty much.
And so my business partner and I, we were going through a small breakup of the business. He was not going to be part owner anymore. I started this company back in August of 2022 and brought him on a year later after I was surprised with how much growth the business was having. I was like, wow, I need somebody to help me with some things and, things I'm not good at and whatnot. So I brought my best friend Cameron on, my best friend here in Tampa, brought him on to do the things that I sucked at, right? That I wasn't good at, that I was like, you know what, can you do these things? And he was like, dude, sounds great. Like I'm all in. He loved the brand. He was already doing the shoots for me. Like we were already, kind of working together in a sense. But fast forward, about a year, his business, his photography, videography business was taking off. And he just didn't have the time and the energy to pour into it anymore. And it was a clean break. It wasn't like,
it's like we both were going different ways.
Mentally, it was a clean break. Like I was like, oh, I don't, resent you for this. And like, sure, I'm sad that you're not going to be working with me on this anymore, but I get it.
And I see what you're doing.
And I support him, dude. Like I love the guy.
Yeah.
And I think that was, I didn't care about him. I would rather him say, hey, I'm not going to be a part of this anymore, than do something he doesn't want to do and energetically show up like that.
Yeah.
And so it was a clean break on the mental aspect. Now on the business side of it, there was a lot of legal paperwork that we had to go through the state to get him legally removed. We were on business accounts together. We were on, banking accounts together. So there was a lot of things on the back end that had to take, take priority. And yeah, it takes months. Like you have to mail these things in, to the state. It's like we're in 2025, now or 2024 and we're doing this. And you have to mail these things in to get them like, hey, we're going to be removing Cameron from the business name. This is going to be the address. It's going to be all the things. Again, I don't know all this. These are all tools and things, and I'm learning as I'm going through it, right? I've never even, been in business with somebody. This is the first time I've ever been in business with somebody, right? So this whole process was brand new, but I was not afraid to be at the bottom.
So what does that look like? Hold up. Because this is something I've thought about. I've always dreamed, goal, own business, right? So let's say I get involved with Jeff. We'll say Jeff. I get involved with Jeff. We start some sort of, we'll just say clothing brand to relate it. So so now I want to get Jeff involved a year in. It's the exact same situation. Yeah. Just for someone who's, building off zero, they can get a little bit of value from this, how to start something. Mm-hmm. Is it paper? Is it contractual? Like, how did you give him a part of that business? Like, what did that look like? Because for me, that I've never done it. Like, for me, it's almost like, how do you even do that?
Yeah. When you're going to an agreement and a partnership with somebody, it's all through the state. It's all legal. You need to get a lawyer involved so that you can legally write up a document that says that he owns 50% or whatever agreement you guys have, that you own this, he owns that. And, if whatever happens, this is in the business where to liquidate or whatever it is,
50-50.
He's liable, you're liable, he gets this, you get this. Like it's in legal terms. You guys both sign that. You guys, obviously the business needs to be registered with the state.
Under an LLC.
Yeah. Whatever you guys decide to register the business as. And then once those are all done, you go through, what's called LegalZoom is what we used, and not to plug them or anything, but it was like that was what we used to get our business legal, get this agreement legally, to the state for them to recognize us that Cameron and Brandon own Pivot Apparel. This is where the address is. This is what the business is. This is how it gets ran. Who owns what? This is the agreement if it gets liquidated. Like all of the things, all of it in paper,
cool.
in this space.
And expense wise, what's that look like to someone that wants to launch this?
It's not very expensive.
$200?
Yeah, it's a couple $100 like
Okay,
total.
cool.
You know, for anyone that's going into business with somebody. But my my advice on that, and it ties into the name of this drop, was when you're getting into business with somebody, like there needs to be, okay, I don't even know how to explain this.
The drop is called what? Back to basics?
The drop's called Back to Basics, but what I'm saying is you don't overcomplicate things, because if the business is yours and you bring somebody in on it, there's no way that they're going to be equally invested or care about it as much as you do. It's your business, right? You can bring them in as somebody that's works with you, and you maybe pay them out, or maybe they have different roles. But when you go 50-50 on a business with somebody that it was never their business, you're just bringing them in to do some other things, I don't think it's possible for them to energetically have the same amount of output or care
Or
for
vision.
that, or
Yeah.
with the business. And so
Versus if you created it from the start with people.
with somebody, that's different.
The vision's different versus, hey, I created this vision. I've done it for a year. I'm introducing you. And like, obviously, this
Right.
sounds like one of your best friends. But it's like, as much as he's doing amazing in his thing, you want to see him succeed. You love to have him on the team. It's like, if you created it and you have one path for it, the likelihood of him being fully aligned on that same line is close to zero.
Exactly. So my advice when anybody getting into business with somebody is the idea needs to either be generated together, or when you're bringing somebody into your business,
They're doing things.
They're doing things. They're contracted out, and you keep it there just for the time being, so that you can really continue on the path that you originally set. Because when you bring somebody else in, they're going to have ideas. They're going to have ways that they want to do this business. And when they're 50-50 legally, especially, you have to entertain these ideas. Your vision can be, and mine was skewed, because I wanted Cameron to love the business as much as I did. And I wanted him to be, as excited for drops as I was, because the stuff that I was putting out originally from the start maybe wasn't his cup of tea. Right. But now he comes in, he's like, hey, I think we should really do this. And I'm like, okay, like,
I want you to be excited, but that's not what I have in my ideas at all.
That's not necessarily what I wanted to do, but like, you know what? Like, you own 50% of this business. You have every right to, have some ideas that get produced as well. Let's go ahead and do that. And that's where I got,
Then you're not passionate about the drop. You're like, man, that drop, but I don't even like a shirt in that whole drop. Man, that drop, but I don't like the way we're going about this. And it's like, then the thing that you created starts to lose all of its touch. And nothing against anyone. It's just like, that's how it works.
That's the reality of it.
Yeah, that's the reality.
It's nothing against any humans or anything specifically, but that's the reality of, what happens when somebody's, or when you guys are not creating from the basics up together. And it's kind of brought in, like, I brought him in after a year and a half. I did, we did 60K in sales in my first year.
Wow.
And I didn't expect that. So I was like, my initial instinct was like, I didn't plan on this being a business. I thought I was just going to be like
passion project, which it still is.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That's what you want it to stay, but it's bigger than I thought.
Exactly. And so I was like, whoa, I need some help. You know what I mean? And like, that's where like I kind of panicked a little bit. And I was like, Cam's good at this stuff. He has good knowledge on this. Like, let me ask him. And he was like super excited, right? There's no shade. Like, again, I don't have a bad bone in my body about this, because of course he wants to be a part of it. Like, if I were to ask you in the same sense, you'd be like, dude, I would love to, like, 50% of the business and we're booming. Like,
and it's two emotional decisions on both sides. Cause you're like, man, I'm overwhelmed. Man, my business is doing great. Man.
That's not how I perceived it though. I was like, dude,
no, at the
we're
time,
blowing up. I was like, dude, like, let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's sick, but it's also like, if you were to take a second and be like, oh man, Cam can help me out. But let me like take a couple days.
Yeah.
He can help me out in these aspects. Maybe not give him 50. Like, not that you don't want to have someone like involved in it, but it's also keeps like, yeah. But that's one of the, like, because I was talking about the impulse decision. Like, I realized I'm a person who, when emotions hit me, I can make impulse decisions. So now I'm trying to like really reflect on like, hey, when I'm hit with emotions, or when I'm like feeling a little different than usual, let's think about these things for a couple of days. Because, I'm not saying you did that because it's exciting, but it's also like you said, now you can realize and look back, like, because you had, man, 60K in sales. What's going on? Man, I'm overwhelmed. I have coaching. I have pivot. I have run club. Like you were starting all these things. Relationship. It's like, well, how do I balance them? Okay, well, let's knock one down. But it's like, yeah. So I think that's important.
Yeah, if I were going to do it again, you know, I would still hire Cameron. I would
nothing different. You can't regret anything.
No, dude. And that's the thing is like, I would still go into business with him. I'll still do 50%. Like, cause these are all things that I understand have to happen at some point. You know, there needs to be that like, man, I shouldn't have done that type of moments within your business or your relationships for you to actually grasp the concept and become confident moving forward. So now I know moving forward, you know, and that's why this, you know, drop is, you know, important to me because it's back to the basics, right? It's what was working, you know, before.
What do I love?
Yeah, exactly. What was the vision and what was the message and what was the purpose when I first started? And getting back to that not only has made me feel, you know, more excited about the brand again, but it's also a lot easier to show up, you know, every day when you're not trying to make other people happy in your business. You're just focused on growing the business. You're focused on producing quality stuff that people enjoy and can align with message wise.
No, I think that's super cool. Back to the basics. And one of my buddies, I don't know if he'll watch this or not, but I think maybe you've met Kelton, but
I think so.
He's kicking off his like fitness and social media thing. And my thing is like, he's like, well, how do I do it? How do I post videos? He wouldn't mind me sharing this because we were talking about this for a while yesterday. And I think it's like, I like the back to the basics, but I almost just like if you're not going back to the basics, just start with the basics.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. I want to be a fitness influencer. I want to be a fitness coach. Well, what grows my account? Posting reels. Posting a reel doesn't take like yes, the quality does matter, but also if you're scared to post, just post once a day, post twice a day. Mm-hmm. And that's what I was like telling him. And I was like, man, you're a little bit scared to post right now, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. But what's the thing that's gonna break that is posting. Right. And I was like, man, I can say all these things and encourage you, but at the end of the day, and I've been there. Like, trust me, I know it's hard, but I was like, at the end of the day, the only way you're gonna break those things is the basics. Post a reel every day.
Yep.
Period. And so same thing with you. It's like starting with the basics. Like what did I love to do? What was I passionate about? How were the clothes when I was like, oh, let's do this? And so that almost leads me to the next. Well, actually, I think. Do anything else you want to say on that subject? Because I want to pivot to something. I'm gonna use it again. I'm gonna keep using it.
It's funny because like the word is so, you know, it's renowned. Like people use it a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And like it's a word that literally only means one thing, and it's like to redirect and to go to the next thing. Right. It's pivot. There's not really another word you can really
synonymous with. I would say adapt.
Yeah, but like you really couldn't use another word to say the word. Say pivot.
Like adapt and pivot have the same
or
thing, but
adjust.
Pivot's like turning from adjust, but like they all mean slightly different things. Adapting is like still taking the same path, but turning into something new.
Yeah.
Pivoting is almost like taking that, you know, you're going down one step and you kind of quickly turn to the other side.
Yeah.
And then what's adjusting is like, you know, not quite as, I don't know. It's kind of cool. We're breaking down words.
Yeah, it is. It's unique, right?
But seriously.
Yeah, it's unique in that way. And the only thing that I want to say, you know, on pivot, the last thing that, you know, we could, before we move forward, is the brand from the beginning has always meant something special to me because I felt like this way of a lifestyle of pivot of, you know, adjusting as you go is the reason why I'm here today, like where I'm at in my life. And so that's why the message is so important to me. It's not just like clothes. It's like, you know, what does the pivot lifestyle do for me? You know, who does that person get to be, and like what kind of experiences and opportunities he have because he didn't give up. Like he kept moving forward, and instead of going backwards, like I just made a pivot, right?
Yeah.
I adjusted on the fly, and I was like, you know what? It's not working out in my favor right now. I'm not going to quit on things. And that's the reason you asked me why I revived it. What was kind of like the thing behind it was like, that was why I made the brand. I made the brand to represent not quitting and not giving up on things when it gets tough, because life is inevitably difficult. Where I'm going to leave somewhere today and like I'm going to face some adversity, like that's inevitable. Like you're going to have some adversity today. You know, you're working today. There's going to be adversity. You know what I'm saying? Like it's inevitable. Yeah. You cannot avoid it. And so that's the last thing I'm going to say on it is the message that I originally had. And, you know, I never lost sight of the message, but the reason why it is what it is because it's created this lifestyle for me that where I can feel confident that no matter what I do, I'm going to get it done, and I'm going to do it well, and I'm going to learn. And even if I'm at the bottom, I'm not scared of, being the rookie. I'll learn and I'll be a vet here soon.
Yeah. And that leads me actually perfectly, not into the subject I was going to go one way, but you led me actually to something, how I met you. So the Tampa Hybrid Run Club, and how this message pivot is going to kind of play into it going forward. One, it was amazing. So I met Brandon through his run club. Hayden invited me, but just felt different off the rip. Like, I went to Off Balance. I like Off Balance, but it was like Brandon was making an intentional effort to meet every single person that walked up. Granted, Off Balance can't do that. There's so many people, but it was like a different feeling of like almost a family, or of like this guy cares. And that was like the first impression I had, was like on the run club, but on Brandon, like, this guy cares about getting to know every single person here. This run club is more intentional to get to know every person here. And so that's how I met him and loved it. And I think it's at a little pause. So I want to see like where that's going, what inspired it. I know we kind of have the same thoughts on, I like Off Balance, don't get me wrong, but it kind of inspired your journey. I'll let you tell it.
Yeah. So when I started getting into running last summer, I went to Off Balance twice. I went my first ever run club. I've never been to a run club, and I was like, there's supposed to be 200 people here.
Yeah,
like, that's crazy, right? And so I showed up, and I'm like, there's actually 200. There's probably more. There were probably 300 people there. It was insane.
Seriously.
But the fact that there was 300 people there, let's just say, on a Saturday morning at 7 a.m. or 7:30 in the morning, I was buzzing. I was like, wow, there's more people that are awake at this time on a Saturday morning in Tampa than just like a few that are like obviously in a good enough shape to run a few miles. Like, that is awesome.
Yeah.
And like right there, I was hooked with like just running, like the run club atmosphere, because I loved being around. I still love being around, team oriented energy. Like, I love that. I love everyone getting together, and that's like my background is sports, right? So I just love being around people that have the same objective and, at the same time. And what really stood out to me was the Saturday morning. Like, I think that is a pivotal point in this whole scenario, is because Saturday morning is a reflection of Friday night. And so the fact that everyone was there on a Saturday morning that early, I already knew what their Friday nights looked like, right? They weren't out. They weren't up late. You wouldn't be here right now at 7:15. You wouldn't have got up at 6 or 6:30 to be here if you were out till 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, whatever it was, doing whatever, God knows what. Yeah. And so to me, like, in where I was at in that part of my life was, I stopped smoking. That was the last time I took a drink of alcohol. Actually, no, I have had wine.
Yeah, I think you drink wine.
I drink wine.
But
I haven't had
any glass of wine, you don't drink. Yeah,
exactly. So like, there was a lot of things that were changing for me in this moment. I was getting out of bodybuilding, starting to run. So like, having this, what felt like support, everybody doing the same thing.
Like, I know these people are aligned with what I'm doing, because one, they're not out.
Exactly.
Two, they're not like, they're finding joy in the coffees in the morning and the runs. Not
it made
the
it a lot
drinks
easier
at night and the hookup culture and the partying and the drug. And it's like, wow.
And I showed up to that, and I was like, man, these people get it. And right there I was like, man, this is really cool. And then to your extent, where you're saying there's a lot of people there, very overwhelming, hard to really meet a lot of people there. Being sponsored by Raw, I know we were going to talk about that at some point, but being a Raw athlete, getting into this more endurance style training and running and stuff like that, I called my athlete manager at the time, Jack, amazing dude. Shout out to Jack. Called him. I was like, hey, I have an idea. I was like, don't laugh, or like, don't shut it down. Just hear me out. Right. Yeah. He's like, no, what's up? At the time, Raw was coming out with their endurance supplement line, which was electrolytes, salt, fuel, which is like a carbohydrate drink for, intra workout, stuff like that for endurance runners, and
like a gel and a sword.
Yeah, it was a powder at the time.
Not a gel, but
they're coming. They just came out with the gels and stuff that too. But I called him and I was like, hey, the endurance line's coming out in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I want to start a run club out here in Tampa, and I want Raw to sponsor it with their new endurance line. I feel like it'd be a great way to kind of introduce the supplements, but also drive traffic
community,
drive traffic to the run club as well. And he was like, I love it. I absolutely love it. Let's do it. Within 2 weeks, and Raw didn't have a run club at this time. This was the first run club that they put on, that they wanted to build, was the Tampa Hybrid Run Club. So fast forward 2 weeks, did a bunch of planning, got a whole booth, get a whole setup, and then we started the run club. We advertised it, and I think we had like 10 people or 15 people come out for the first one. And we didn't have massive numbers by any means, and we still haven't. And that was never the goal. The goal was to be personalized, was to be unique, was to invite community where people, met each other and knew each other and look forward to coming to this event to see each other, right? Because community is huge, man. And then it's like, you're in school your whole life, you play sports your whole life, you have this brotherhood growing up, like you have all these, go to college and you have
sports,
you're in a fraternity,
whatever.
And then you get out of that stuff and you're on your own.
There's
right?
nothing. Dude, that was my experience.
And and I relate to that because I've been yearning for that kind of community, that kind of like support and energy, and just like, I know when we get together, we do this, right? I know when we get together, we have conversations about this. So like, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Right. And I didn't know I was really looking for it when I went to the run club, the Off Balance, which again, I still go to run Off Balance. It's dope.
Yeah.
It's
no,
amazing.
Off Balance is sick.
If they can't help it that they got to 1 million people, like that's not
they can't help that
right?
500 people show up and like, but no, it is sick. It's amazing. But I think you were like, I want to
to
make
be different,
deeper connections.
Yeah.
And you did. And so, but
I basically wanted to be like a football team out there, like not necessarily males, but I wanted it to be like that kind of like energy of like brotherhood and like friendship and team and community. Like I wanted that. You know what I mean? Whether you were running a 9-minute mile or a 10-minute mile or a 650, like it didn't matter. I wanted you to be able to show up yourself, whatever you're wearing, whatever shoes you had, and like come out here and be supported by the people that were there. That was the purpose of the run club. And to get to your question, what's going on with it? There has been a small hiatus in it because the frequency was really high when we started. Like I was really excited about it at the time, and I'm still excited about it. But the frequency of the runs was really high. And we do like almost an event style, run club where setting up a booth, got all of these, I got the electrolytes out there, I got the raw supplements. I have samples everywhere, and I mean, you've
cold
seen
plunges.
It. Yeah, you've
the cold
seen
plunges was sick.
Yeah,
and you did it, but it's like, yeah, the frequency was high. It was almost once or twice a week, but on top of that, it's like, it's not like you got nothing else going on.
Exactly, that's my point. Yeah, exactly.
It's like you want to give it your all, but sometimes it's like there's seasons, and is this the season of the run club right now? Maybe not.
Right. It's a little bit more of like business stuff. I need to get pivot, under, a more consistent flow, and I'm putting a lot of energy into that. And that's how life works. It's like energy.
Seasons.
Like,
It's
exactly.
And
your season of giving energy to this, more to this. And right now the run club is not getting as much energy as I want to give it, but it's going to resurface in a less frequent way, in a more event style, once or twice a month instead of twice a week or every week, which it doesn't make it feel as special when I'm doing an event twice a week.
100%.
When I'm doing like this big booth setup and like, and that's kind of the expectation now. And I'm doing that 4, 5, 6 times a month versus twice. Like there's a different level of, I mean, in a business term, supply and demand, right? There's a different level of like, the supply is a lot lower. So the demand's going to go up. Right. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it, and not to like drive more people there, but just, again, to be able to give energy to all of the things in my life that deserve it and that I respect. Pulling back in that area is going to give you that.
Necessary. It's necessary.
It is.
And I love that because, well, you have some other ventures you're passionate about as well, which we'll dive into in a second, but probably briefly. But it's these seasons, and same thing. It's like you can realize like, hey, this event run club I hosted on Saturdays. I think Saturday is like the primary day, like you didn't miss Saturday mornings, which competes with Off Balance, which isn't a bad thing. But maybe it's like reframe it to wait. Maybe if I do once a month or twice a month, and we have cold plunges every time, but we do it on a Friday morning, which is weird because no one really does it on a Friday morning, or maybe it's a Thursday, whatever it is. Monday morning, we kick off the week, right? Cold plunges. And now it's like, now I tell Off Balance and maybe Off Balance post it. And now we get the 30, 40, 50 people on a Monday morning to come to the cold plunge once a month. And it's like, now you start to like look at things a little bit differently.
Exactly.
And now you're a lot less time, but the season is once a month we do this, and it's an event thing where people from Off Balance, people from other run clubs, because it's a different day of the week, they start to come.
Right.
And
Exactly.
So now you think about all those things, but you can also be at peace. Like, hey, that's all great and all, but right now it's pivot. I'm just really enjoying getting into photography and videography, which I just briefly talk on. I think, dude, this episode is going to be by far the longest one. I know it. But
how far are we in right now?
We're almost in 2 hours.
Oh wow, let's go.
So we'll kind of hit this subject, and then we'll leave some opening, like some last remarks, cut it off. But 100% you're gonna have to come on again because this it's flown by.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I know like you're helping me grow as a podcaster right now. But this conversation is just so good. So grateful to have you on. But yeah, so touch on like the photography side of things, creative, and I think that's what you're really being able to lean in with this brand, along with. It's just the creativity side of things versus, you love the coaching. We haven't even really dove into it much. We dove into it, how it affected your life. But I don't think we're going to get into it today.
It's cool.
But, yeah, it's just like you've realized, hey, the systems, the processes, the coaching, I like it.
Mm-hmm.
But how can I really utilize that different part of my brain where it's creativity, photography, videography, creating shirts? So speak on that. Just being able to utilize that side of your brain leading into photography. I actually posted a picture you took of me because it was sick. So
yeah, and so the idea behind it was always expression.
There goes one camera, I guess.
You're good. The idea behind it was always expression. I want to be able to express myself in a way, that I'm not able to do anymore because I don't play sports, right? That was my form of expression and creativity was when I played, right? You got to be a specific, you had a specific output, a specific outlet. Shirts. You had swag, and everything like that. I just didn't have that anymore. And so I knew I was missing that. And being creative as a man is just, it's such a hack for your ability to develop, because it challenges you in ways that you're not really doing on a daily basis. It challenges you to learn. It challenges you to think and focus. And, being creative is not necessarily something I'm great at. Like, it's not just like, oh, like I can draw, or like I'm not great at
creating a shirt.
Yeah, I'm writing. My handwriting sucks, dude. Like, I'm not super creative. But what I've always really liked creativity in was problem solving, because I think there's always like multiple ways to get a problem solved. And so I kind of took that aspect of being creative, but I wanted to express that in, something that I made, right? I wanted something where I can learn and like get better at and develop a skill and be creative at. And like, that's where Pivot started. Right. And then when I was getting into, or when, as I've been a coach for the last 4 or 5 years now, content was always a huge part of people, or was always a huge part of the business. Right. And so like I always had to make content, and I liked making content. I love being creative with the content. So like I was able to, think outside the box of like, okay, what are people really looking to get value wise from content, and how can I provide that in a way that's easily digestible, that's fun and entertaining to look at, and that, is going to hold people's attention, right? Like that was where the challenge was in the creativity. Same thing with the shirts. It's like, okay, how can I create something that's different, that has a message, that also looks good on people, that when they put it on, they're like, I'm wearing Pivot, they can associate an identity with the message, right? And so that was where, I'm still creating that stuff, and I'm still, heavily present in that process. Same thing with coaching. It's like, I'm still heavily, involved in the content side of it, right? And creating. Now, do I care so much about the social media anymore? Not really. I don't really care about like growing my social media as much. So that's where I got into photography and like videography recently. Is I know other people are. So let's say you were like, dude, I really want to grow my socials. I want to be at least, at 15,000 followers. Like, do you have any ideas that would help me get to, that benchmark? And I'm like, yeah, dude, like I can absolutely help you script up some, some quality content around the value that you're looking to provide, around the audience you're looking to attract, and then be creative with how we can deliver this value to people that, again, same concept, is easily digestible, valuable, and holds people's attention. Like that's fun to me. Like
Yeah.
I like doing that. I don't necessarily like care about doing that to my own anymore because
Yeah.
like, I don't know, I'm just over myself, I guess. I don't know, but I would like to help people with my skills of understanding like the
How to
social media metrics, the filming metrics, the, you know, just engagement, the platform itself. Those are the kind of things that I want to help people with.
No, I like that.
And photography itself is just really fun. Like it's
super cool.
It's fun, man. It really is. Like you can be so creative with the framing, the lighting, you know, with how you edit it, and like really what you're trying to drive, what kind of emotion you're trying to drive through this still image. I think videography is a lot easier to do that, but if you can learn, and I'm nowhere near that, but like if you can learn how to master that skill of driving a specific emotion through a still image, like that can be very powerful.
No, yeah. And that's super cool how like we didn't dive too much into social media, but how you've transferred, you're like, I almost wanted the attention or want the growth, not necessarily all, but like there was that aspect, and like, or, you know, I'm pushing them as people as possible, but now it's like that's all great and all, but I just want to pursue this passion of the clothing brand and this, and who it reaches, it will reach. It's meant to reach. That's where I believe what this podcast is. I fully submitted it to the Lord, and like whoever God wants this podcast to reach, it will reach. Not saying like I'm still gonna put in the inputs, but it's like you know, it's easy to get wrapped up in the worldly, like the likes, the views, the comments, this and that. But then when I finally just stepped back and I was like, man, whatever God wants to do with this, He'll do. Like my success, the success of this podcast is right now. Like this conversation, it's been amazing. Like boom, setting up the cameras, even though one just died. Crazy. I didn't even know that was possible. We still got like whatever. Anyways, one just died, but it's like that success is like having someone on and just having this conversation and like showing up when I say I'm going to show up, and like all the likes and comments and views, because that was like, dude, you post something and you work really hard on it and 5 people watch it.
Yep.
Oh, but it's like, but that's not what matters. But it does, sometimes it does hurt because you put a lot of passion and work into it.
Yeah.
But I got over that so much. I'm like, man, one of those views, I just changed their life. If it reached just one person. And so that's where I could kind of change my mindset and just be like, and I think that's how you see it. But like putting out the passion thing that, you know, the message can change one person's life, and that what they're wearing is real deal, like what your message of your life is. And same thing with the photography. It's like, man, that's something I created, and if people love it, it's like I put my heart and soul into it. But maybe only 10 people like that picture for 5 years, but you keep posting those pictures, and that one picture, people appreciate it forever. Or it's like, I don't know. So I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. The mindset on that is huge. And, you know, on that note, there's one thing that, you know, really stands out and has stood out to me recently is like, maybe you're not enjoying the process, or you're not grateful for what you're achieving because you're constantly raising the bar. So if your bar was, man, you're think about this. At one point you were thinking about starting a podcast. And now you're doing the podcast, but you've raised your bar to getting more views, right? And now getting more attention and growing it. But like your bar was just below. It was like, oh man, I think
How do I work a camera?
I want to start. Right? Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
you're constantly raising the bar all the time. It's really hard to be proud of yourself.
And it's my buddy Matt, I think he's the episode before this, but he just told me yesterday about the arrival fallacy. He was explaining exactly what I was talking about, but he's like, that's the arrival fallacy. I was like, okay, that's what it is.
Yeah.
But basically, it's the sense that, you know, and this is how I was for a long time. You can probably maybe relate, but I was always like the next success, the next thing, the next this, then I'll be happy. And it's like, dude, that's the worst mindset you can go and walk about life in. It's like, then when I get this, then I'll be happy. And it's like, so I've started to take the small wins, and I read a book called Holy Habits where it talks about like 10 habits, and one of them is just celebrate everything, or find the small things, or be satisfied. And it's like, you know, that I get to enjoy this coffee and have this conversation, but finding those small things is how you enjoy the process. And so that's really what I've been like, because that arrival fallacy is like that when I reach 1 million subscribers, then I'll be happy. Maybe that's what it is for some people. It's like when you do, you'll get that hit of dopamine, but guess what? It's going to go right back down to level. But the people who throughout the whole process find that small, like just along the way, like, man, I had this conversation today. Man, I hit this lift with this person. All the way when they hit that 1 million, guess what? it's not going to really spike anything, but they're just going to be so joyful every single day that it's going to be amazing. But
the objective would be to raise your base, raise your
that
baseline
instead of that.
Instead of your spiking it, just your baseline, your frequency is up, you elevating, your energy, and it's staying up here. You're full of joy, and no matter what happens.
Yeah.
You're grateful for no matter what happens. If I get 10 views or if I get 10,000, like, you're grateful for it.
I got to shoot it. Like, I got a chance to step on and have a conversation with someone that was great that day.
Yeah, and that's why Pivot is what it is, dude. Is like I've loved the process of learning all of it. I've always been somebody that's really like enjoys the process. I like learning things. I love getting better at them. Like, I almost obsess over, improvement, right? And self-development, like just like your podcast is about. Like, I'm obsessed with becoming a better man. I'm obsessed with becoming a better partner, a better friend for, the people around me. I'm obsessed with, the development of the Run Club. Like, I literally cannot give things a low amount of effort. I don't know how to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And it's bit me, in the tail a couple of times, just because, you get burnt out when you're giving things 100%, right? There's got to be able to balance it. But, that's, if you're looking to get into something and you want it to develop and grow, you have to be able to, number one, be okay with being at the bottom. Like, that is the number one thing. Like, kill your ego. You suck. Like, just admit it. Just
I know that I don't know anything.
Yeah, you can't. You're going to suck. Like, you're taking your first basketball shot. That ball is not going in. Like, that ball ain't going in. Your second one's probably not going in. Your third one's probably not going in. But, like, being okay with that. Like, being okay with just being a shooter. You know what I mean? And just keep going. So, obsessed about the process. Love it.
Love it. All right, so we just had the other camera go out. So this is a learning lesson. I haven't gone this far yet, but no, this conversation's been so good. I think maybe next drop we have another convo. Yep. We don't have to wait that long for sure. But I do want to just ask, like, any closing remarks. Like, what do you want to say to the audience? What do you want to what message do you want to just like leave us off with before we end this amazing episode?
So your question was, what's the best advice I've ever received earlier? First thing was, if it were easy, everyone would do it. That's the first thing that I ever piece of advice that I was just like, wow, that makes sense. I actually have it tattooed on my ribs because it was that powerful to me. It really meant that hard work is what's going to get you to the promised land, no matter what it is. Like, you have to be willing to work for it, give it effort, be consistent, and do what other people aren't willing to do. Right. And so that's the number one thing. And my own advice from 28 years old on this planet that really has helped me create peace and consistency in my life and not be afraid is, don't take things personal. Nothing is personal. What somebody does to you, man, you have no idea where they come from, what they're used to, their behavior patterns, and where, like I said earlier, what it's derived from. They're programmed a certain way. So you taking things personal that other people do, it only hurts you. Don't take it personal if you get low amount of views, right? Don't take it personal if,
someone blows a gasket on you.
You ask a girl out and she says no. Don't take it personal when somebody, does something to you. Like, that's going to help you stay more centered and create from a place of, create from a place of, what's the word? Create from a more logical standpoint and create from a more compassionate standpoint than creating out of fear of getting people to like you.
Emotional, if
when you're creating from
it's defensive, right? When if someone, because I found this for a while for me, and I get exactly, because if someone's giving you advice or a lot of the things that people say is a reflection of themselves onto you, but two, a lot of the things people say are actually constructive, great criticism that you're going to be defensive of because you think your way is the right way. And if you take it, and that's something I had to notice was like, hey, when my parents tell me something, I get defensive. Why is it? I don't know, but I should be able to get to the point that I'm so confident that I can hear their opinions out openly, take it for what it is, and then if it's good, I can implement it.
There's no such thing as right or wrong. It's just based off your perspective.
Yeah, there's not binary terms.
There isn't, and that's, you can't take things personal because people are just responding based off of what they experience and what they are. Even, and this is even to the depths of things. Is like when somebody commits murder, right? Like, majority of the time, like that is a byproduct of their environment, what they were raised around, violence and abuse, and that has wired them to behave a specific way. Like you don't know their background, right? Sure that they're committing a very,
that one I would say,
but to that
binary wrong, and it's a sin, but also
let me finish that on that point. There's a man who plays for the 49ers, and his name is Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, I know who he is.
And he was shot in the face. Somebody was trying to take his Rolex and shot him in the face and almost killed him.
Wow. And
I will never forget reading the whole report. He said that he doesn't blame him. He doesn't blame him because he doesn't know his background. He's not judging a man based off of one action. He can't judge a man off of one action. This guy tried to kill him
for a Rolex,
for a monetary thing, and he's looking at it with this perspective. And I just thought to myself, I said, you know what? Like, he's right. He's absolutely right, and it creates so much more peace for him to be able to forgive somebody that tried to kill him. And that's when I say, you know what, like there needs to be more understanding of those things, because if he were to have hate in his heart and he would have all of these things towards this individual that's going to continue to hurt him, that's going to continue to draw this out, but he's forgiven this person.
Yeah, at that point there's peace. It doesn't trickle to the next person, it doesn't trickle into his subconscious.
He's not taking it personal.
And yeah, I have like a mentor, my therapist, mentor, life coach, whatever you want to call it, but he sits with people on death row and he's like, man, what, like he really dives in, like what made this person this way? Instead of like judging, it's like, yes, murdering or like trying to kill someone for a Rolex, like at the end of the day, I think that is one of the things you can almost put in binary terms to close, that's wrong. That's
absolutely.
A sin.
Oh, it absolutely is wrong.
Yeah, it's like those, but then opening up to like, hey, what made this person this way? How can I, like, what did this person go through? That takes a whole other
level of elevated consciousness to be able to actually ask that question and to be able to think about it, because it's surface level. It's like you said, it's so wrong. It's, quite literally the worst thing you could probably do on the planet. And for us to actually evaluate it in a way of behavioral and pattern structure takes a whole nother level of consciousness and patience and understanding, and honestly just obsession over the mind, which not a lot of people have. It's very surface level. And it's like, okay, you're going to jail. You committed this, which is it should be like that. Like the justice system absolutely should, it should be like that 100%. But I think there could be a lot of learning for future minds that might have similar upbringing, similar backgrounds that could prevent things like this from happening in the future.
Being able to have, I think, the key.
But you can't learn if you're angry. You can't learn if you're mad.
No.
You can't understand if you're
if you're defensive systems up.
Exactly.
Or it's like having that compassion and that empathy to just go forward.
Like you're paying for your actions 100%, but like I need to know,
because a lot of times it's going to bring that peace to yourself. Exactly. If you hold anger and resentment, if you can have compassion, empathy, and you'll find peace in that way. And if you hold that anger, you'll never will. It'll drive you.
His story's amazing.
Man, well, awesome episode. That's the process with Brandon Long. What are your socials?
Brandon _longtime is my Instagram. PivotGPA.com has our latest drop, Back to the Basics. Go snag some gear. Palmer, I appreciate you having me on here, bro. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, amazing conversation. That's the process. Peace.